see you in the land of Mordor. Death awaits you at the border. Pass on through the gates of fun. Destroy the ring of power and wonder.
Middle-earth role-playing fans, we are back in the lands of Middle-earth. This time we're going to be looking at Rivendell, the House of Elrond. 8080 in the series. Got a pretty cool map here. You got the Nazgul, two of the Nazgul riding by with the House of Rivendell in the backdrop. Of course, the closest the Nazgul ever got to Rivendell was the Fords of Brunnen before they got swept away. That'd be about the closest those guys ever got to Rivendell itself. Though the Witch King did semi-besiege it during the Northern Wars with Angmar and Arthedain. Basically, he kept a holding force on the far side of the Brunnen within the Trollshaws in the East Road to stop Rivendell from reinforcing the army of Arthedain. So that's as close as any Nazgul ever got. They probably never ever saw what the house actually looked like. Even if they were to fly over in a fell beast, they wouldn't be able to see anything because of the ring of power that's there. Would have just kept them at bay. Only Sauron himself could have probably breached the defenses, and even then he would have a hard time without the ring of power. So that picture is kind of misleading. This is an Agnes McBride picture, though, I believe. Though I don't see his signature on it. But I believe it was his. I have to go back to Characters of Middle-earth now to find out. So anyway, this book was made in 1987. So this is outside the original 7 that came out in 85. You open it up, you get a pretty cool map. It's basically the same map as Goblin Gate, the interior, because they are in the same place. Like you got Rivendell, and then you got the High Pass, and you got Goblin Gate. So Goblin Gate's there. The front porch is there. There's the back door. Eagle's Eyrie is right there. So there's really nothing new in this map that wasn't already in Goblin Gate. Yep, the cover art was Agnes McBride. I was right. Peter Fenlon did the color max with Jessica Ney. Peter Fenlon, he did the world map. Alright, so moving on. We got the guidelines, as always. No big deal. Converting stats. Basic color key maps. Introduction, a general history of Rivendell and the timeline, the Second Age, Third Age. Rivendell started out, was nothing in the First Age. And for most of the Second Age, it wasn't nothing until the war between Sauron and the Elves, when Sauron sacked Eregion, and Elrond, who was leading a relief army from Lindon, was forced to the north with the survivors from Eregion and made a refuge in Imladris, in that valley where he held back Sauron's northern forces. Had Sauron brought his entire army together and marched on Rivendell, then it would have not have been a thing. But Sauron had bigger things, like Lindon was his primary goal. But the Númenóreans came in the nick of time and kind of ruined that idea. Though Sauron by that time was kind of overstretched. So they decided, instead of reoccupying Eregion, they concentrated on Imladris, or Rivendell. So its population in the Second Age was larger than the Third Age. And in the Second Age, it's where the army of Arnor met with the forces of Rivendell, and they crossed over the mountains, the Misty Mountains, instead of going through the Gap of Rohan. And their numbers were swelled by Elves of Mirkwood and the Elves of Lothlorien. So the Third Age was the quiet time where the ring of power that Elrond has is doing his job. Not much really happens in Rivendell. It's kind of a boring place. It's more of a sanctuary, especially if you just crossed over from the Misty Mountains to the west and you had a hard time with the goblins, then it's a great place to go. Or if you had problems with trolls on the East Road or with Angmar at the time, then it's a perfect haven for you to rest up, relax, chill. I think Frodo and company, they spent like 2 or 3 months. They definitely spent 2 months in Rivendell just getting healing from their traumatic experience from when they left the Shire all the way to Rivendell. So the Third Age, nothing really happens. The Great Plague doesn't affect Rivendell. Bilbo comes by with Thorin and company. They go off. Then Bilbo comes back, rests for a bit, it goes off. Then Bilbo finally retires in Rivendell and stays there until it's time for him to go over the sea. Of course, Frodo and company, they get to Rivendell, stay 2 months, and then they go off. They come back, meet Bilbo. So there's really, it's just brief, your time there. So nothing happens. The land around Rivendell, it's got the geography. Obviously, you're in the fords of the Brunnen, so you got 2 main streams coming off the Misty Mountains that are icy and cold, and they meet at the fords. They meet and create quite the river of the Brunnen. And of course, Elrond has a certain amount of control over the waters itself, thanks to his Ring of Power. And the surrounding areas to the east, you got Rudar, so you get the Trollshaws to the north, the main part, the Rudar Central Plain, and then of course the Angle. And to the south, there's nothing there until you hit Eregion, and of course you've got the Misty Mountains, which are a huge barrier. So geography is definitely something that happens. The Cold Fells, okay. So it mentions the Highlands, the Cold Fells, the Trollshaws, the lowlands, and the rivers. Flora, no big deal there. You're going to find some Athelas or Kingsfoil in the nearby woods and stuff. Elrond's going to have his own herbal garden. And some magic mushrooms to go along with it, probably. Fauna, your typical stuff like bears, wolves. There are giants, supposedly in the Highlands of Rudar. Ghost, not really. Great eagles in the mountains, obviously, from Eagle's Eyrie. They're going to fly over the west side occasionally. And then, of course, you're going to get all your other fun stuff. Next up, it goes into the inhabitants, the elves. So again, a lot of this is mentioned in Lorien and the Elven Smiths Halls and Lords of Middle-earth Volume 1. Elrond is, of course, a lot of things. He's got Mannish blood in him. He's got Noldorin blood, Sindarin blood, and Valinorian blood in him from Melian, who was one of the lesser angels, the Maiar. So he's got angelic blood in him. So he's got a lot of different things. He's got a lot going for him, actually. So then it goes to talk about the dress and appearance, the Noldor, the Telari, the Sindar, Nandor, and the Avari, the Dark Elves. So they'd have a mix of everything. Because the elves, when they fled from Sauron in the Second Age, it wasn't just the Noldor of Eregion. There was also some Sindarin exiles. There was a lot of the Nandorin, the Green Elves from Osirialand there. And there would also be some Dark Elves who never went, who roamed that whole area of Eregion, but were forced to flee when Sauron arrived in Eriador. And over the course of time, they would also migrate to Rivendell. It's a safe place to be. So it goes into society, the military. Everyone is capable of bearing arms. All of them would be combat veterans of at least 1,000 years. Economy, not much in economy. It's isolated, self-sustaining, microcosm. Religion, obviously they worship Harub, no big deal there. Language, Sindarin would be the biggest one, but they also know all the other languages. Next you got trolls, pretty frequent in the Trollshaws. The Hillmen, when they were there, the Hillmen were decimated during when the Witch King of Angmar decided he had enough of them and got rid of them. But it talks about this is a 1640 book of the Third Age, so there are Hillmen. Talks about what they're like. Then you got the Dunedain of Rudar, what's left of them. Talks about them, their military. Again, not much to go with. The Dunmen or Dunlendings, who became the common folk of Rudar by the 16th century of the Third Age. Again, the same idea. It talks about the origins, the society, politics, military, economy, worship, language. So I'm just doing this quickly because, honestly, Rivendell is a boring place. It's a place to find stuff, find out knowledge. Okay, politics and power. Elrond is, of course, the most powerful guy. Gives his backstory, his principal items. Other prominent elves like Glorfindel gives a good description of the Vilya, the Elven Ring of Air, what it can do. And then you got Arwen Undomiel, however you pronounce that. Talks about her. Elladan Elrohir, the sons of Elrond, who are twins. They are, when their mother Celebrian is captured by orcs, they go rescue her, and she takes such a wound that she can no longer stay in Middle Earth and heads overseas, which causes Elrond and family much heartache, and the two brothers will not rest until they've hunted every orc in the Misty Mountains. Makes me wonder why they didn't join the dwarves when they were in their war. Erestor, which is the chief counselor. Hilvanar, which is never mentioned in Lord of the Rings himself, so he's a made-up character. Ascarnil is another one. He's like a scout, goes abroad a lot. Vinyedhul, another made-up character, so another NPC. So Rivendell's place in history, it's a refuge. It's pure and simple. The White Council meets there like 4 or 5 times. It's got the membership, which is mostly the High Elves and the Ishtari, or the Wizards. And then we got the Rivendell area map. The valley, key areas, so orchard, gaming fields, stables, vineyards. I think it's a cool map. No, there's not much to it. There really isn't much to this place. And then we have an area map, so you see Rivendell. I guess that's supposed to be the fords of the ford. Sorry. There's the bridge from the South Fork of the Brunnen, and then you have the forts. So this is where the ring race crossed the river and got swept away. So they weren't anywhere near Rivendell. They wouldn't have even seen it. Because remember in The Hobbit, Bilbo, Thorin and company were foundering in the fords, and it was kind of like a switchback. You needed someone who knew the way. So Gandalf would have been there to really find your way around. That's a cool map. You can use that as a military map. The main hall, lower levels, north wings. So it's not a big place. There's not a lot of rooms. Elves, they would have their own rooms, personal rooms maybe. The main elves. So you have the main house, lower level. There'd be a sub-level, a basement level. Then you got the main house, level 1. Council chambers. It's not a fortified place. Level 2, level 3. So they're claiming this is many levels. In the Peter Jackson films, Rivendell was an awesome place. It looked great. Weta Workshop and the artists there, they made an amazing Rivendell scenery. And when I played the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game, when I went to a tournament, some guys from the Ontario Hobbit Association, the OHA, they created an amazing Rivendell set. If I can find the picture, I'll put it in. So they also got the forges, an extra store, so you get a forge hall, obviously. That's where Narsil, the shards of Narsil, are reforged for Aragorn when he sets out. You get a western hall. Mentions everything, so there's guest rooms. Bilbo is going to have his own room. There'll be a library. Level 2, level 3. So adventures and guidelines. Choosing a time period. Well, you can't adventure in Rivendell. It's like it's just like Boromir said. You don't just walk into Mordor. Well, you just don't walk into Rivendell uninvited and expect to do stuff. The only thing I could think of to adventure in Rivendell would be to try and steal into Arwen's room and steal her underwear. The best thing I could think of. Didn't work out well. They got caught. They got put in stocks. They got their ass beat with a paddle and then kicked out on their way with no clothes and no gear. Now you could try something harder and try and get the shards of Narsil or something like that, or steal some kind of book, but really it's just a base. It's a refuge. Unless you're an evil character trying to get in, even then you're not going to do it. So now adventures around Rivendell, you could try and find the Hidden Vale, but that's not a good messenger. So take a message to Rivendell. Reconnaissance for Elrond, this would be most likely. Find out what's going on in Rudar or in the Misty Mountains. So this could be a tie-in to Goblin Gate and Healing of the Trollshaws, obviously. And now we get the herb charts. master NPC tables, master beast chart, and then finally a map of Rudar itself. Unfortunately, this map doesn't connect with the front cover map. It would have been better if it did, but this is a nice little map, mostly of the Pine Fells, the Trollshaws. So the Pinnaturag, the Trollshaws, and then the Eningladel, the Angle. So the Angle is one of those things where when the trolls are less when there's not so many trolls, the human population of the Angle expands and spreads up north. But then when the trolls start reappearing, then humans start retreating back towards the Angle, because there were still some small mannish settlements in Rudar, especially in the Eningladel. And supposedly the Dunedain, they also established small villages in Rudar itself, close to Rivendell, where they could easily battle evil. Though I imagine the Dunedain had homes, scattered villages and homes and secret locations all across Old Arnor to keep an eye on things. Because remember, they're supposed to be guarding the Shire. You can't guard the Shire when your home's like a couple of 100 miles away. And the back cover just gives a description. And that's it. So what I think of this book, I love the information you can get in this book. And the layouts. You can use the layouts in other locations as something else. But as far as adventures go, it's not a very good adventure book. It's just a base to run other adventures somewhere else. And when it goes bad, you run with your tail tucked between your legs and run back to Rivendell if something goes wrong. Rivendell's not going to buy stuff from you. They're just going to give you stuff. You don't even have to pay for it half the time. They're not going to give you anything fancy. You're not going to get Elrond's sword to go take on an adventure. And it's just a place to have a good rest, get a good meal, and get as much knowledge as you can. Information about the surrounding area. That's all it is. It's all it was good for. In the long term, Elrond has very little to do with Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Especially Lord of the Rings. In The Hobbit, he's got a little more to do because he reads the runes on the map and tells them what their swords are. Lord of the Rings, he does even less. Well, I guess he forges the swords of Narsil and picks the company. And then later he brings his daughter to get married. Marries his daughter off. That's all he does. I would rather they had gone back into the Second Age and done a pretty good one where a retreat from Eregion and give Elrond command of the army in the Last Alliance. That would have been cooler. But anyway, it is what it is. So all you Middle-earth role-playing fans out there, let me know if you guys had this book. What'd you think with it? Could you use it? Did you use it for anything? Or did you find it more like me and kind of, it's good to read? Leave comments in the comment section, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Tell anybody else you know about the channel. And until next time, this has been Roman Daisel. I'm out of here.
Daylight falls upon the path, the forest falls behind. Today I am not prey to dark uncertainty. The shadow trembles in its wrath. I've robbed its blackness blind and tasted sunlight as my fear came clear.